Q&A for Tape. We are really pleased that you're here today with us to discuss what it's like to be a young actress in the Me Too Time's Up movement at the moment. To introduce the session, I would like to welcome Deborah Meyer, who is the writer and director of Tape.
Hi, and I'm your moderator tonight as well. I'm so excited you can all be here. I hope some of you were here last night for our conversation where we focused on the film in general, and tonight we're really going to zero in on the experience of both the young actresses who were acting in Tape, and also we have a very special guest we're bringing tonight. We're bringing you Abigail Breslin, and I'm just going to introduce her. I'm sure you actually know her quite well, but I'm just going to go through her bio real quick for you. She appeared in her first commercial when she was 3 years old, and her first film Signs at the age of 5, which means she beat Isabelle by what, 2 years, Isabelle?
Yeah.
And I hold it over her all the time.
All the time.
Her other film roles include Raising Helen, Little Miss Sunshine, for which she was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, No Reservations, Nim's Island, Definitely Maybe, My Sister's Keeper, Zombieland, Rango, The Call, August, Osage County, and Zombieland Double Tap. And between 2015 and 2016, she starred on the horror comedy Scream Queens on Fox for her first regular role on a television series. So let's bring Abigail on up.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Very happy to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here, and a huge fan of the film, and obviously Isabelle, who's a friend of mine, and we've worked together, and I was really moved by the film, and so I'm super excited to be here to talk with you guys.
Thank you. And, you know, I think before I start introing Isabelle and Annarosa, which I will do, or just bring them up because everyone just saw them, I did want to start with a question. You know, Isabelle talked to me once about, or maybe more than once, about when she turned 18, there was a dramatic shift in the roles she got offered, like literally the day she turned 18. Now, you've been at this, you know, a little longer than her. So did you have the same experience?
I did, and I actually saw a shift in roles that I was being offered slightly before that, even where I was given a script where when I was 14 years old, where it would require me to kiss a 30-year-old guy, and so I did definitely see a dramatic shift, and I also think that people forget that when you're a child actor, so to speak, before you turn 18, there's child labor laws, and you can't work for certain amounts of time. You know, you can only work for 9.5 hours a day. And so definitely I saw a shift in roles that were much more sexually advanced, and kind of capitalizing on that, but also knowing that they had the ability to have me on set without my parents or anything like that.
Right, right. No one there to watch over you anymore.
Right.
And did you have experiences that were similar to? I mean, you don't have to share this, but were you coming up against uncomfortable situations then?
Absolutely, absolutely. I won't name any names per se, but I mean, I have I've dealt with sexual assault and abuse in my life prior to any movements that have been started, and also not within the film world whatsoever, but on sets I have encountered certain people who have, you know, when there's somebody in a very vulnerable position in a film, and certain scenes that require less clothing than others. I had dealt with somebody who was kind of kind of touching me in a way that was very uncomfortable. And when me and my mom spoke up to the producers, we're told it would be way worse for me to get him fired, because then I'd have to do a deposition and explain what had happened. And that was when I was 15. And I think that kind of set a marker for, okay, it almost made me feel like, okay, so I did something incorrect and I shouldn't even be bringing this up to anybody. Right. Because it's not going to, the way that it was made to sound was, it will be worse for you if you talk about it.
Right.
So I've definitely dealt with it before on sets.
Yeah.
Sure.
And Isabelle, do you want to jump in just in terms of the shift that you saw when you turned 18?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I noticed is like you immediately get emails that come in and it says like nudity required. Like in the email for your initial audition. Like you haven't even read the script. You don't even know if you got the part, but like they have the email and they describe like who the character is, the plot, they attach script and like audition sides, and then in bold it just says nudity, some nudity or partial nudity or nudity or full frontal nudity required. And so basically what they're saying is they're sending out this audition and basically saying like, if you want to come out and audition for this, just be prepared that you'll also be, not only if you get it, you'll also be signing a contract that will allow us to show parts of your body. And if you don't consent to that after you get the job, then you won't probably get the job in the end. They'll just hire somebody else that's willing to do it. And my sister's so funny, and I think it's like we laugh about it a lot because I booked a show right after I turned 18, like the first, like right in February. Sex, which is a very sexual show, and I had just turned 18, and there's a lot of nudity on that show. And I remember that they wanted me to be topless in a scene in my first episode. And it was a conversation that I had like back and forth with my agents. Like I was so torn up about it because on one hand, it's like what you've been told since you were younger, that this is what will be required of you as you get older, and it's okay. And you're signing a contract, so they can only use so much of what you're showing. But I didn't feel necessarily comfortable with it. My parents obviously are like, no. And so, but it's a great opportunity. And it's not like, you know, it then became an argument where I had to kind of advocate for myself as to why I didn't feel like it was necessary, which I really didn't feel like it was. I was playing somebody that was 16 years old. I didn't think it was necessary to see someone who was 16 in this show's like boobs. It didn't make sense to me. And I fought hard for it, and I luckily was not, like, the job wasn't taken away from me. I ended up being able to do it, and they were really supportive of my decision. But I remember I was beating my head against the wall about it, and my sister turned to me and she said, "Are they paying you well?" And I was like, "No, they're just paying me like the normal rate that they pay people, you know." And she goes,
very Madeline.
She goes, "You know, there are actresses who make millions of dollars for showing their boobs in movies. So unless they're paying you money to see your boobs, then there's no reason you should even consider it." And it is like a hilarious thing, but it you know, it did make me laugh and kind of go like, why would I be okay giving this up right now after I've just turned 18? I don't understand what it's going to really be like. Why am I in this position at this age where I'm just now old enough, right? And I'm told to make this big decision that could possibly affect me for the rest of my life, and I want to be game and like fun to work. So like, I don't necessarily feel comfortable. So it was definitely a big learning lesson. And I think moving forward since then, I've been a lot more confident in terms of what to me, I feel like nudity in a film would be useful for. And I've kind of decided that, like, you know, in this day and age where everything's online, there will come a time where nudity will be required of me for a role. And it's just making sure that I feel like the story makes sense for it. I think I've seen nudity in films where there's been sexual situations and no nudity in those scenes, and nudity in scenes that require no sex. And I find that to be way more powerful. And I think that that's more so where you want to go. I don't want my body to be objectified. And I'm not, the sad part is, like, even if I don't want it to be, it is by people because I am a woman. And so this like double-edged sword of like, I don't want to put my body in a sexual situation. It doesn't mean somebody else is not going to see it as being sexy. So you kind of have to decide for yourself what you feel comfortable with. And, you know, moving forward, I think it's still like, I'm sweating right now. It still makes me stressed out. And I'm sure Abby would say the same. Like, it's one of those things where you're always like, I don't really know. So yeah.
Well, I think that, I mean, if I can jump in,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think that brings up a really interesting point, because I think that there's different people who have different levels of comfort with exposing certain aspects of themselves and their body. And I think if under the circumstances you feel comfortable with it, it's one thing. And I think that the biggest issue is there's so many instances where we as women in this industry feel like if we don't, we're not going to be seen as easy to work with, or game for anything, or risk takers, or I think a lot of the time the industry can sometimes put out this idea that if you don't take risks and you're not edgy and you're not this type of girl who's willing to do whatever it takes to be a movie star, then you shouldn't be involved in it. And I also think that, but I don't think that it's to say that people who choose to be nude on screen are incorrect. I think it's to say that, and if you're comfortable with it, if you feel good about it, and you feel like it, I like what you said about the fact that it had to do with the film and what it was doing for the film. Hello. But I think that we, as a society, need to not put the pressure on that's what we solely as women have to offer is our bodies.
Yeah. You know what I think I'd like to do, because this conversation feels very organic. I think I should pop out. We can only, just for the people watching, we can only have 3 of us up at a time. And I think what we should do is bring in Annarosa and pull me out. Whoever just took Isabelle out, I wanted her to stay in. So if Isabelle could stay in, so that the three actresses can continue this conversation. I think it'd be really interesting to dive in. Hey, Annarosa.
Hi.
So I just want to say,
nice to meet you.
As you know, she was starring in this film, but this is also her story. This film is, and she came out 3 days ago about that. It was in the New York Times yesterday, and a few days earlier we started publicly talking about it. What I'd love to do, I'm not sure now what's happening, but what I would love to do is have you address, if you, Annarosa, I know in a way you're not as young as they are, but you actually are younger maybe with in terms of the amount of work you've done. And I'm just curious, as you moved into, I guess there are 2 parts. There was pre-Me Too when we wrote the script, and then there was post-Me Too when you performed it. And I'm wondering if there's even any difference, even though you hadn't acted in a feature, you've done a lot of theater, and maybe it's a theater comparison, but I'm just wondering what's the feeling in terms of going onto set post-Me Too as opposed to pre-Me Too?
I appreciate getting to answer this question, because I do feel sort of like a new, very fresh in this career, because as you mentioned, the tape being there was something that was very much in my way of really pursuing acting. So I had kind of held myself back, and only now really are pursuing it, and was given this chance to be in Tape. So Tape was really my first feature film that I was in, that I wasn't a crew member or like a very, very small role. And I think what I'm thinking of is that our crew was a lot of women. Deborah, was it like, it was
all of our department heads, our department heads, and the majority of the crew was women, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's like the feeling I'm getting when I'm thinking about, I'm sure Isabelle, can speak more about it too, but like there's just generally, it feels safer when there are more women, especially as department heads, especially you know, in charge of wardrobe. I felt it's a receptive environment. It's if you need to get something out, someone will hear you and get it to the person who needs to hear it. So for me, that felt very special. There were a lot of things that were very special about, I think, our production and our set and our crew. But I think based on having had the experience in tape in 2010, there were, I see it in the film there, and it's things that this guy really did say to me, where like the words that Abigail is using about like being, you have to be a risk taker. You have to be someone we can trust. If we throw you into this situation, you got to go for it. And he really used that to sort of dangle, you know, do you have what it takes? So I don't know, I'm probably not really I'm answering the question as best I can, because I know I'm not nearly as experienced as Isabelle and Abigail, but I did feel really lucky to be on set with tape and sort of absorb maybe some of the shifting environment and maybe the way sets will be in the future with just more women, just a more equal group of people.
I'm sorry, I came back in because I've been having internet issues towards the middle of that. But I just wanted to say, I think it's super, super brave for you to kind of bear yourself that way in front of people and shed light on something that I think is very prevalent in our industry. And I'm really hoping, and I think that your guys' film will help a lot of young actresses understand that they don't have to kind of succumb to that pressure and that judgment and that requirement, and that we are more than just our bodies, and we have more to offer a project than just our boobs and our hips and our whatever. Yeah. Exactly. And so I really appreciate that, and I think it's an insane world. And maybe Isabelle, I don't know, maybe both of you can speak on it. Have you felt since Me Too and Time's Up, those movements, do you feel like there has been a change in terms of the way you've been treated in casting offices and on sets?
I think the biggest shift that I've noticed is that I've never found myself to be alone in a room, not just like even male, female, but like just alone in a room with somebody that I'm working with, which I think is a really good start. I think in general, like it's nice to have other people there. And I think also the more people you involve in all conversations around any projects that you're doing, I mean, it is art, is expression, the more people feel invested in it. So I think that just drives the creativity forward, regardless of whether or not it's like pertaining to you. But I also think that I was telling you about this, Abby, yesterday. I worked on a film where in Canada where, you know, I had a nudity writer in it, and I had a scene where basically I didn't want my nipples to show. But I had a scene where I was in pajamas, and for any woman in the world, I think most women don't go to sleep wearing a bra. And so I didn't want to wear a bra. And on that day, I was in my underwear, so they had a representative there who then argued with me that I should be wearing a bra. And I remember feeling like I was being attacked for basically wanting to wear a shirt without a bra. And it really annoyed me because the shirt was kind of sheer. And I was like, no, this is different because this is not like the sex scene that I'm having. This is just.
Also, do you want to explain briefly for anybody watching what a nudity writer is? Because I don't know, I didn't know what it was.
Yeah. So a nudity writer is something that your agents and your lawyers and you write up with not just the like lawyers or people behind the movie, but the creatives behind the movie. of basically exactly what of your body can be shown.
You're willing to show. Yeah.
And the funny thing about it is it is incredibly like specific to the point where it's
Super.
like performer will show no more, will show full bare back, but will not show, the frame must end a minimum of 2 inches above ass crack.
In silhouette.
That's how specific.
In backlit form. Yeah.
Performer is comfortable shows, but not nipple front side, or, you know, like literally everything like that, you know. And so you sign this like contract, and basically this woman was like holding it and telling me what I could and couldn't show. It might be like annoying. And so when we had the day where I was filming, like they filmed both of my sex scenes in the same day. And I remember, I think my link is someone's chatting as me, but I'm on screen and I'm definitely not typing. So someone's typing as me. I don't know how.
Whoever's typing is Isabelle, not her.
No.
Not me. Anyway,
What's happening?
so I asked if I could get an intimacy coordinator for the sex scenes that we were filming, which I've never worked with. And it was the most incredible experience that I think I've ever had filming a sex scene, because basically the intimacy coordinator was like this super cool like stunt woman who now is an intimacy coordinator. And she like blocked it with me and the guy, because I had a sex scene with a man, and then in the second half of the day a sex scene with the woman who played my girlfriend. And so with the guy, she put a bouncy ball in between his pelvis and mine, so that way it looked more aggressive, but it was just really funny. And like, I also, the frame didn't show the bottom half of my body, which I wouldn't know because you typically don't see the frame that they're filming. And so the woman, like I was working with a female director, and we were like, she was setting up the frame, and the intimacy coordinator just said, they're not seeing the bottom half of you, so just keep your sweatpants on. So like, I was basically like humped by a bouncy ball in sweatpants, which made the whole thing like
which
so
was
much
what
less
every girl
stressful.
wants.
Which what every girl wants.
Which every girl
You know?
wants.
And then and then it was funny because the second half of the day we had blocked the scenes, and because I was doing a scene with a woman, I was like, it's okay, she can go home, I'm totally good without it. But I realized when she left how important it is to have an intimacy coordinator there, because what she did is she communicates with the director and with you and helps both of you achieve a level of comfort. So the director gets exactly what she needs, but also I was able to say, like, you know, what exactly do you need from me that makes sense? Where is the frame? You know, because then you're aware of what they're filming, so you know what parts you need to play up to be sexier or more this or more that. Right. And then you're also in a place where you feel comfortable because you're there with somebody who's able to tell you, like, put your chin up a little bit more, because she's looking out for you just as much. So I was like,
and this is something I've never heard of, by the way. I've never heard of an intimacy coordinator, and I think that's so cool.
Brand new. It is.
Yeah.
I think that's so
It
cool.
is brand
I think that's
new,
incredible.
and legally you are allowed to request it on any job that you have a sexual situation in. So I would say go for it, because it was really fun. It was really fun.
Annarosa, how about you? Did you feel any shift, like, since?
Oh, I was saying, so yeah, Deborah sort of directed the question to me. Oh no, did we lose you?
She'll reconnect. It'll be good. We'll be okay.
We'll be okay. Along the lines of intimacy coordinator, I do think it's so great that that's sort of this new role that is available, and a real like job on set. I actually have a friend who is doing it, and Colleen, hey, if you're watching, and you know, Deborah as a director is essentially an intimacy coordinator, so I felt very lucky on tape.
Yeah.
She, as you and I, you know, experienced in rehearsal, the space that Deborah created was incredibly safe and so open, communicative. Anything any of us needed to share or work out was totally on the table. So I think that's an amazing sort of solution that people have come up with, and it's also a cool job. I think the people who gravitate towards it are you know, the right people for it, because there's this need for, advocacy for the performer and for the whole the work of art, So I think it's a cool thing, and also just felt lucky that Deborah had sort of intrinsically has those skills. So making tape felt like we were all really, really taking care
I didn't know that it only took 12 days for you guys to film this.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much.
It was crazy. It was crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And also that if I can just ask, like, because I am just a viewer as well. I wanted to ask, because there are some scenes that really touch on some extremely sensitive, situations. And I wanted to kind of see, because after watching it and being somebody who has dealt with assaults in the past and so on and so forth, I wanted to kind of know how that affects you guys, like, while you're filming it, and how visceral it felt, and what was the most challenging part of the shoot for you emotionally and physically, if you don't mind sharing.
I think first and foremost, when Annarosa and I met, I felt just so incredibly connected to her and felt like this had to be handled with such like delicate hands. And I really felt such a duty to her to not only be, along for the ride with this whole thing with her, but also to make sure that I told the truth of what that story was. And I think also at the same time, I think we all go through waves in this industry. And I think you guys would agree with me where, you have work and then you have dry spells where nothing's happening. Absolutely. And it can last for long periods of time. And at the time that Deborah had sent me tape, I had just gone through like a little bout of, self-deprecation, feeling really down on myself, feeling like being told the same things like in that scene where I talked to my mom. Like I had auditions like a week prior, like 4 auditions in a week, and one of them told me that I was too fat, one of them told me that I was too skinny, and another one said I was too tall, and another one said I was too thin. And I was like, what is this? Like, I was like, it just doesn't make sense. And all of it just, most of it, which you don't realize in the moment, is a lot of it is just excuses because they're looking for something specific to walk through the door. But it feels very personal. And it feels personal because you're experiencing rejection, not just once or twice, but like 4 or 5 times.
And it's personal when it's happening to you.
Yeah.
Yes, it is personal and so I think the biggest thing that I realized when I read the script, and then even after speaking with Annarosa, is that I felt so adamantly that I didn't want this movie to be seen and for this situation to be perceived as like what people think it is, which is like really innocent, really sweet girl who doesn't know any better and who isn't, the brightest bulb, I wanted this story to be what it really is, like an incredibly smart woman who is in a point in her life where she feels like she's had the door slammed in her face so many times, and she has somebody who like opens this door out of nowhere and is offering her a hand and is saying those things that we've all experienced in this industry, is like, you don't want to be seen as someone difficult to work with. You don't want to be seen as somebody that is not game or down. You don't want to be seen as somebody that is not going to just jump into any opportunity head first. And those are all, but if the wrong person takes advantage of that and of language, they can really take advantage of a person. And I think that's, it's what we were saying, in all these conversations, it's not just like a Harvey Weinstein issue. It's in every industry. It's not just big, massive, big head honcho producers. It's people like this guy who's a real person who is just a horrible person. Like, it's, so I felt like the responsibility for me on a daily basis, it went so fast that I don't think I had a moment to like catch my breath. And then I finished filming and I just remember feeling like incredibly vulnerable and open for a very long time, and it made me come to terms with a lot of things that I had experienced in my life and understand, you know, where I felt, you know, the blame had fallen, which was of course on myself when it wasn't. And
Right.
through it, I was able to get over those things. I mean, get
That's
over is like the
amazing.
wrong word, but you
Cope
I
through,
felt
like,
I could
get
talk to
through.
people
Yeah.
about it. Yeah, I felt like I could talk to people about it for the first time. And Annarosa, I mean, this is your story, so I think you can answer this probably way better than I can.
You know,
Also, I want to, before you continue on, I might have to rejoin on my other phone. And yes, I am that girl who has two phones, and it's not because I'm cool. It's just
Your
because I
phone's
have two
dying.
phones currently, because my phones break all the time. It's not because I'm cool. It's because I have to get weird phones from random places
totally.
and rejoining on these things, because I'm actually, I really would love to hear, because Annarosa, this is your story, if I'm correct, and that's something that's really important. So if I do die on you guys, not physically but metaphorically,
Just come
I
back.
will be rejoining, and you will
Virtually.
just don't think that I'm ditching. But
Gotcha.
please continue on.
I love you.
It's just
This is what you got when you invited me into this group, by the way.
so great. I love it. It's occurring to me, this, I don't know if this will answer the question, but I think something that's sort of related to pre and I guess not really post, I guess we're in Me Too now, but I think that, so this experience, like I said, happened in 2010, and I truly hoped I was like a one-off, and that this wasn't something that this guy systemically does. And only found out very, very recently that this is something he systemically does. He, in the past few years, has really zeroed in on models. And just, anyway, when I told Deborah the story, I didn't know where he was. I had a hard time finding him. We just got really the information that's in the New York Times article came to me like a month ago. So it's all very, very fresh. He was just like, and now he's real. And part of that is because the women who are suing him now, and one of them who really took charge of doing something about him and what he does, it was November of 2017, and she had this experience, and all of this stuff was going on with Me Too and Harvey Weinstein, and she was just like, you know what, this is totally wrong what he did. I got to figure out something legal. I need to take some action. And she really pursued it like doggedly. It was like, not, law enforcement didn't want to get involved, and you know, probably because, like my tape, he had their consent. But like not really. And that he was, you know, using platforms like Model Making to put out auditions and like reel them in, using very similar language as he did with me, like, this is what models do and all this stuff. But what's sort of amazing to me is that, you know, I told Deborah my story. We did our best to try to get our film made. It took a while, and we finally, you know, were able to start making it in 2018. And at the same time, this amazing woman and other women who had been through this were gathering and working on this case, on this way to take action, to hold him accountable in some way. And right now it's still only a civil case. And I really hope, once I found this out, and once, you know, we were just pursuing like our, you know, publicity for our film and wanting to, you know, put the word out that we're making a film. But since it coincided, or since the information came out with the real life guy and this lawsuit, it was just amazing how we were both, how those of us who had been affected by him were doing what we could to take our power back. We were making tape over here, and these other amazing, brave women were pulling together this lawsuit with this wonderful lawyer, Stephen, who's just been amazing. And so I feel like, you know, when it happened to me, I didn't think I could do anything. I was certain I couldn't go to law enforcement. I knew the tape said that I agreed. So I didn't think there was anything I could do. But I really commend these women who are suing him for being like, no, there is a way. And like, we have to hold him accountable. And I think a lot of people would agree that it is actually criminal behavior, what he did. And I hope we maybe can get some more attention on it. So that's sort of a real life shift, I would say, that Me Too has achieved. And I'm just so grateful to Deborah and everyone involved with the film to that, you know, that was my way of moving forward and taking this horrible thing that happened and moving it into something, taking my shit and turning it into gold, as Deborah says. And anyway, so that's sort of, probably a digression from the question, but it was just in my head.
No.
Abby, we'll get her back, I hope.
She'll be back. She'll be back. I'm also just gonna again say that I did not type "I love you, Isabelle Fuhrman" to myself. I really don't know. Somebody's access to my account. It's okay. We're still here, but we're good. I think it might be that I posted the link, and because I posted the link that was sent to me, I think whoever clicked on that link can access my account. It's totally fine. Anyway, no one's on my phone. Anyway, I'm just gonna keep my hands where everyone can see them.
Yes.
Exactly. No, I think that. Yeah. I was looking at the questions. I think we touched base on intimacy coordinators, which is the question at the top.
Cool. Okay.
Learn about yourself while making the movie. I think that's a good question.
Oh, I like that. That's a great
question. Annarosa has always been a badass. I just don't think she realized it until she did this movie.
That's true. Okay, I mean, sure, I'll take that. No, day one was me shaving my head, so that was a great way to really just
how hard was that?
Get into it. It was so.
She legit shaved her head.
So I thought, like, in my head, my dream was like, I'm gonna be like Demi Moore, like I'm gonna be so cool. I was like sobbing and terrified, and like didn't know how the thing worked, like a meltdown. But it was so cool. I think Deborah had such a great idea in saying, like, she's like, look, I think you got to shave your head. It's just part of this sort of transformation that I think she knows all. And it was like the key in, and I actually had also pierced my tongue. I had done it a few days or like a week before, and we were almost over prepared because I did it so much earlier that I actually was able to speak pretty well, which we were kind of like, oh shoot, maybe I should have done it more at the last minute. But that really helped me too, because it was just like, like getting used to this like pain thing and the Lavinia. I don't know. It was a great way to just kind of get into it. And I would say that I felt kind of in the same way that, like, when I first read the script, I've said this, that it really, I felt like it changed me on like a cellular level. Like I could like show up differently now that this thing like existed, this work of art that just like, it just pulled this shitty thing that happened to me and made it this beautiful work of art. And so once I actually got to be Rosa and go through that actual like transformation and all her actions and all her language, it was incredibly healing and exciting. And a little bit, there were definitely days that were very painful, but it was not unhealthy painful. It was somewhere to put my grief. And I realized, I think the grief,
like cathartic in a way.
Yeah. And I think some of it was grief that I felt for other women, that it was, I had sort of mourned myself already, but I needed to mourn all of these women, all of these stories we heard. I was particularly like heartbroken about, I mean, I'm not alone here with Annabella Sciorra's story. That one like just is so haunting. I'll like never forget it. And I think that was something, yeah, kind of cathartic too. I felt like I could
Yeah.
bring those women with me.
Yeah.
So it was,
Yeah.
I learned a lot. It was great. Isabelle.
I think my biggest lesson probably was when we were filming the scene in the room when he's like, you know, the whole 8-hour day of like, you know, this is what you have to do for your art and that whole thing. You know, we filmed that was like a over 20-hour day. It was like a very long day. And by the end of it, like I felt like I was so in the feeling of what that's like to be confined in a room for that long. And it felt very, very real. And then it was only when I got home, like the next morning, because we filmed all day and all night. And the next morning I went home and I couldn't sleep. And I went walking in Central Park because we were filming in New York. And I just remember I was like walking around and I was trying to feeling was in my chest that like that I had experienced before, of like that feeling of being in a room with somebody and feeling like I should probably leave. This doesn't sit right. Like I should go. You just sit through it anyway. And things just kind of escalate to a point where you're just like, oh, I should really leave now. And I was like, oh, well, it's just because I did the scene. And then it made me realize there were so many, like I was tapping into this feeling that I had just kind of like pushed, you know, down and not, you know, allowed myself to like look at really. And I was like, wow, there have been so many situations in my life where I have felt that way. And a number of them where I've walked out of rooms, but also a number of them where I've stayed far longer than I should have. And you know, it's everything from like, you know, when you're like in middle school and you're like with a boy that you like and his friend, and the boy you like leaves the room and you're there with his friend and his friend starts talking to you and you're like, this feels weird. Like all of a sudden the energy just feels bad. Like, why am I here?
Like a different thing. And I think that's also very interesting too, because of the fact that we like, I'm gonna let you continue, and then I'll state my.
No, I mean that was it. Really, it's like you know, it's one of those things where you just like you end up with that weird sort of like moment of, oh no, this is not.
Sorry,
this is not, you know.
Well, and Deborah, like we've talked about this too, where when you're like in that situation with men, or especially kind of when you're younger and you're like navigating the male gaze of maybe they want you there, and so you're like, oh, okay, and you are sort of like pulled away from your instincts, and you're leaving yourself, and you're kind of ignoring that voice in your head that is right, that we're not really taught to honor, I think, as young women or women. I mean, maybe the younger ones are now, but I don't know. I know
my mom used to always tell me,
I think
trust your gut. That will never steer you wrong. Yeah. And I think that's one of the most important things is like,
it's true.
We, as women, we're also taught that we are physically weaker. Therefore, we're more vulnerable. Therefore, we are mentally weaker. Therefore, we are all of these other things that society puts on women, and that are not necessarily done to men. Like they will, if you look at like tabloids, and which I try to never look at, but like if you look at tabloids, which this woman came, like just had a baby and she doesn't look good, or she hasn't lost the baby weight in time. But then there's also pictures of like some actor in his 40s on the internet, and they're like, oh, he has a cute dad bod and we love it and it's great, and like how sweet and charming and endearing. And if a woman has a little bit of weight on her from having a child, they're like, how dare she not have gotten back to a size 0 in the course of 9 weeks? This is absolute insanity. How dare she? Yeah. Which I think also puts something on the body standards that kind of correlate with these situations. And as Isabelle brought up, having, you know, and in the film, you bring up the issue of like, oh, I didn't get this audition because I was too fat, and then one day I was too skinny. Me personally, I had a director tell me if I got a nose job, he would hire me.
Cool.
at age 15.
Nice guy.
Wow, great. That's awesome. No.
I had
And
someone
my
in an
response was, I
audition
was only
stop
reading
me
the
and
script as a
say,
favor.
oh, that's horrible. Oh gosh.
What? Wait, what were you saying, Isabel? Oh, wait, are we both?
I had some, are we back? Are we back? Okay.
We're back.
I
We're
had
back.
somebody in an audition once stop me mid scene and literally said, sorry, you're just not the type of pretty that's going to get this part. And I remember walking out, I was 16, I cried, and the casting director, who I'd known since I was like 8, ran out after me and was like, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. Wait, am I back? Wait, I
Something's
just disappeared.
Oh, that's so funny. I wonder what's up. Abby, have you had like any super rude auditions like that? I haven't been out there.
Besides the nose job one, I also had a, tell me I was big boned.
Oh, wow. Wow. That makes my blood
Which was,
boil.
which was a really, you know, it's interesting when you go in and you're an actor and you want to just give a really good performance and you think that, and when we're talking about me being, when I was like probably thinner than I am now and a size down from what I am now, and we're talking about size 0 to 4 being big boned, and that's, to me, I think that that's,
Jesus.
and it just shows further how it's a misogynistic culture and how men are allowed to be kind of like the, you know, funny, endearing types, and they're allowed to have a different body shape than women are allowed to in this industry, because you're either the, I found that there's a lot of there, you're either the, you know, the leading lady, beautiful, whatever, or your friend and the chubby friend, and that's not like the right, I don't think that we should be putting, and that just directly draws back to how much pressure we emphasize on women's bodies and how much that is the thing that we have to offer.
That's it.
In what that's what they think we have to offer, and that's what's upsetting.
Yeah.
But I think in the same sort of breath, and I don't think necessarily for bodies, I think there is, you know, it kind of slightly goes two ways. It's like at the same time as we are told as women that, you know, if we're emotional, we're like crazy, and like if we, you know, are, stand strong on something, that we are, you know, we're bitches, and like all this sort of dialogue. I think it also goes the same direction too, in a different way for men, where it's like men that are vulnerable and are like standing in a lot of ways by women's sides and being like, you know, women are incredible, they're beautiful, and I'm, you know, sensitive and cry and that sort of thing, that those men are seen as less of men than men because of that. And I think it's like, it's not just a one-sided issue. I think that's like when we talk about feminism, I feel like a lot of times people are like, oh no, I am a feminist, or I'm not a feminist because I don't believe in it. And it's like, you know, if you believe in, you know, in women and men being treated, you know, equally, then yes, you fall in the category of being a feminist. And like, there are some incredibly wonderful men out there that I have had the pleasure of working with who have made me feel incredibly heard, seen, understood, comfortable, and done everything to make sure I felt that way. Just the same way that I've worked with women that have made me feel that way. And I've also worked with both men and women that have made me feel slightly uncomfortable. So it's like, it's a very interesting sort of thing. And I think obviously it depends on the people that you're working with. But in this industry, I think it's, you're just working with different people, and every single time you're in a whole new environment with completely new people, and you're just kind of trying to navigate it. And so hopefully you end up in the right pool of people, because I feel like the minute that comfort is like broken, that's when you don't feel safe, and when you feel like everything comes at you from a place of wanting something out of you. And so I think it's like important. That's why I think right now, like, you know, intimacy coach is not being alone in a room with somebody that you're working with. I think what those do is they like create this sort of barrier of safe trust, because they allow, you're in this like weird petri dish, right? Where we work together for 12 days, 14 days, 30 days, couple months, where you see someone all day, every day, from like morning to evening. And sometimes you go to the same hotel where you're staying with them, and you're like constantly around people. And so, of course, there are like issues that come up. There, tensions that come up. There's things that you like really bond with some people and you don't with others. And so I think that, there needs to be, I think, like a group effort, not just from like women talking about this, but men talking about this and being open to the idea of watching a movie like this that makes them feel uncomfortable and makes them go, oh, maybe when I was a teenager and I wanted to hook up with that girl, what I said was not exactly very nice. And it doesn't make you a bad person for having done that in your youth. It makes you a better person now for recognizing, okay.
Yeah.
So look, guys, I don't want to, because I know that there's only a little bit of time left, and I've really enjoyed talking with both of you, because I think both of you are immensely talented, and I as just a woman and an actress who is in this industry appreciate your film so much, and I encourage everybody to watch it, because I think that it's really important, and I think it's really brave, and I want to let Deborah, the director, come back on here and kind of let you guys, as the three women of the film, speak on the rest of it. But I wanted to say thank you for including me, and I loved chatting with you guys. And also, can we just do this as like a FaceTime with the three of us anyway?
I know.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yes. Okay,
anytime.
well, I need to go, but everybody watch this movie. And Deborah,
mwah, mwah, mwah. I love you, Abby.
Love you both.
Have a good night. Bye. Should we pick another question, Annarosa?
Yeah, I found a question I wanted.
She's the best, by the way.
She is the best.
Isn't she the best?
She joined us. Oh my gosh, that was a real treat. I'm so grateful. There was something I wanted to answer that I really liked. Where is this? It was Ilana. Ilana, where is it? How were you able to not lose your sensitivity toward yourself and toward your experience through making it so public? So this has been a really intense week, and a lot of gratitude to Deborah and Isabelle and my family. It was kind of like crossing a threshold. I think once I realized I did want to share that this was my story, it felt really like I had to, because it's too big of a problem, and it's something I'm really passionate about, that being women's experiences, women's point of view, equality in the world for all, including, any trans, binary, LGBTQIA, anyone, being able to be heard and seen and valued, especially in instances of abuse and abusive power. So it sort of was like a switch, and I went, all right, I have to share it. But it was pretty painful going through, and I think it was incredibly valuable. I have a therapist I work with. I have a director who I can call literally any hour of the day, like losing my shit, and she'll talk to me forever and let me be that way and help me through. And then I have this, incredible cast in Isabelle and Tarek. They've been so supportive throughout all of this, just getting little notes from them, messages. And then, of course, in the work we did together on the film, it was just so deeply supportive from these three people. And then I have some really great friends and a wonderful family. My parents came to see the film and loved it, and that blew me away. I was so worried about them, and they were like, we're fine. Like, don't worry about us. This is a beautiful film, and we're so proud of you for making it. And they weren't fine. It was certainly painful, but I think they felt what I feel about just wanting to move the needle, and something about just being honest, just throwing it out there in a way, kind of, I think it helps the whole situation relax. It helps me relax, and it helps me feel like I can give permission to others, I hope, and just like open up this door, because there's so many kinds of stories that I think we think are very clearly, yes, that's abuse. Yes, we know that that's wrong. Whereas stories like ours in tape, we call it the gray area of the Me Too movement, when it's like, oh, was this right, or who was wrong, who was right, coercion, manipulation, when like at the end of the day, it was wrong. And those of us who've been through things that aren't as black and white should be able to share them and not carry around the shame of them. Gosh, I got all kinds of stuff to say along those lines, but I was able to hold my sensitivity towards myself with an incredible group of people around me who support me. And I think just the idea that I could help. Thank you for your question. Ilana.
There's a great question someone wrote, by the way, that says, what are some tips and tricks?
Yes.
To not be taking advantage of in the industry. So I think that's a good question for the two of us to answer.
You go. Yeah, you start.
Me start. I think the biggest one would be like what Abby said, trust your gut. I think that again, like, especially as women, I think we're told not to trust our gut a lot of the time. And we have a very good intuition. I think women have that in spades. And I think also the biggest thing is like, you know, from that instance when I was 18, I was not uncomfortable with the idea of showing my body. I think most people aren't necessarily uncomfortable with that. But I think my main form of discomfort was that I was saying yes to something on the contingency that they wanted this out of me, and I wasn't sure how I would feel about it down the line. And I honestly still don't I still don't know what I would think about it if I did. I do know that when I saw the show, I was like, they totally didn't need it. Which is, I think, most often the answer. But I think also you just have to feel like the decision you make is one that you're making for yourself and nobody else. And you also, I think, should take as much time in the world to think about it. And if someone is pressuring you to make a decision on something, then that is not a reason to say yes. That's actually a reason to say no. Because if someone truly respects you, they're not going to they have to talk you into something.
Mm-hmm.
That choice.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think something popped into my head that I feel like Deborah, shoot, I forgot it. Oh well. Deborah?
We actually have gone past our time, and so I'm thinking, unless we want to scroll through and see if there are any questions you all are just like dying to answer before I close this out. Do you want to take a look at the question box and just see if there's anything you want to say? And while you're looking, I just want to say, who keeps popping?
I feel good. I'm
I feel
for everyone. Is this me? Oh no, I do think someone must have connected through my link somehow.
So funny.
So, do you see something, Annarosa, you want to address? Otherwise, I'm going to thank you all so much. And is there anything more you want to answer?
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, I think we covered it. And, if you really want to hear or ask us a question, come back to our other Q&As. We'll be doing this for many more days.
2 weeks.
Yeah. I do want to take a moment to really thank the three of you. Abigail, thank you so much for joining us. That was incredible. It was great to have your experiences brought into this conversation, and your support is incredible. And the two of you, I'm just like so moved by this conversation, and really so grateful to you all. And for those of, I'm sure I can speak for the entire audience in just expressing our gratitude, and a big round of applause for you. And I do want to ask, everyone who's watching, please spread the word about our film. Please spread the word about these conversations. We're really excited. Tomorrow is a big day for us. We actually added a matinee screening that is being presented by NYWIFT, New York Women in Film and Television. And they have asked if they could present tape as part of their Swan Day, which is Support Women Artists Now, which is a big event that happens every year. And they had to close theirs down because of the situation we're all in. And so they came to us and said they would love to present our film tomorrow at 2:00. And Annarosa and I will be there to talk about the making of tape. And that makes it also possible for anyone in Europe to not have to stay up all night to watch our film and hear our Q&A.
Yeah.
So do spread the word to your friends over across the pond. And then in the evening, we're going to be having another screening and Q&A, and that one will be on the subject of making a film from your personal story. And I'll be joined by Annarosa, as well as Numa Perrier. And if you haven't seen her film, it's called Jezebel, and you can watch it on Netflix. It's amazing. And so we'll be having a conversation that will be moderated by Marissa Corbell, and talking to these two women about what it was like to make a film from their personal story. So that's tomorrow. We do have screenings and Q&As all the way through April the 9th. So again, please spread the word. Please continue to join us in these conversations. And I love you, Annarosa, and I love you, Isabelle. Thank you all so much for being here.
Oh, I love you guys. Thank you so much. This was so fun.
Great.
Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you. Bye.